My name is Spodie. Welcome to my wall. In my ball fade using my detailers, I decided to give it a nice ball smooth canvas. Once I have my smooth canvas, I snap on my number one guard, going with the grain to lower the top canvas to start off this nice fade. Using my Wahl Sterling clippers, I decided to grab my number one wall guard in the open position. I start off against the grain to create my fade from open to close. Removing my number one guard from my Sterling clippers, I start my fade with my clippers open with the grain from open to close. And then I reverse it open, going against the grain from open to close to give a nice smooth fade. During this ball fade, I decided not to use the zero guard. I didn't use my zero guard to cut back time. I used my blade instead. I removed my number one guard, open up my blade, and decide to go with the grain from open to close. And then I reverse the process with the open blade going against the grain from open to close to give it a nice, smooth, flawless fade, leaving no lines. And I continue this all the way around. Once I get that flawless fade, making sure that it's uniform, making sure there's no lines, making sure everything is crispy, I move on to my next step. Once I get everything in good and smooth, flawless lines, I come with my 5-star detailers and I give it a nice, smooth, crisp line, moving from the middle to the right, the middle to the left, making sure the line is straight across the forehead. And finish up with a little bit of razor, giving it a nice, smooth finish. Look at those edges, sharp. Now that's a ball fade. In my creative cut, I decide to use my number one guard on my Wahl Sterling clippers to give it a nice, smooth canvas. To decrease the bulk, I use my clipper over clone technique instead of my Wahl #2 guard. So once I get my canvas nice and smooth and I'm satisfied with the outlook of my fade, I decide to pick up my 5-star Wahl detailers and create a design of one of a kind. It's freestyle. So with that being said, I'm doing whatever the clippers allow me to do. If I'm curving, I'm curving. I'm doing straight lines, I'm doing straight lines. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just letting the clippers flow. Let them do what they do. Let them do what they want to do. Once I get it in real good, I make sure that my lines are nice and clean and real crisp, and just make sure that everything looks real good to the eye. I want to make sure that everything comes together. Every line matches up. Whatever line I don't want to match up, I don't let it match up. It's just letting it go. I'm just letting it freestyle, letting it flow. Using these detailers, I love the way they edge up. I love the way they give me the crisp lines, because the detailers are not only used for edging, they're also used for creating stuff like this. Why not? I pick them up, I do my thing. So on the side of my design, instead of letting it go all the way around, I decided to stop and give it a little quarter fade on the side on the temple area. With that being said, I use my #1 guard from open to close against the grain. With the grain, I use my #0 guard from open to close, from with the grain, against the grain. The same technique over and over till I create a flawless fade. Once that's finished, I go through my design and look at different areas that I would like to fade out. So I found a couple of them. I started to use my 0 guard and I started to fade. Removing my 0 guard, I started to use my blade just from open to close motion to give it a nice, smooth, flawless fade. To give my flawless fade, I always start from open to close, and I never start off close because I do not like lines. Once my fade is started, I do not want to create other lines, so I do not close. I stay open, and I keep it very safe for me. So that's what I like to tell others when they're cutting. If they're asking me questions about these things, I say, hey, start from open to close instead of from close to open. But they say, why? I say, because you create less lines. Why create lines within a fade when you're trying to eliminate lines? That's the whole object of a fade, is to eliminate the lines in the fade to make it as flawless, as uniform as possible. I use my Wahl edges to give a nice, clean, crisp line across the forehead, making sure everything is even, starting from the middle of the forehead, from left to right, from right to left. I like to also clean up everything with my razor. My razor is like my finishing touch. Usually look at the lines and like, oh man, it's not right. When you come back with that razor, you can remove all that unwanted hair that you didn't want, all that unnecessary hair that you didn't want, that you couldn't see. You can always remove it with your razor. And doing the design, I like to create a design that's customized to each client's haircut and hairstyle, and to each client's personality and style. Some give boundaries, others don't. But all designs come out customized to their liking. On my textured crop, I decided to use my Wahl balding clippers to give it a nice, smooth canvas. Using my #1 guard on my Sterling clippers, I decide to give it a upward motion in C strokes with the blade wide open to close, because I don't want to create a heavy line. So to give it a nice smooth fade, I use my #1 guard in the open position, and I go against the grain and using C strokes from open to close, and with the grain from open to close. So using my #1 guard on my Sterling clippers, I decided to go in an upward motion against the grain using C strokes from open to close, and then coming downward from open to close to give it a nice smooth fade. To eliminate unnecessary bulk, I also use my clipper over comb technique instead of using my #2 guard. I use this technique to cut back time from switching guards. And once I do this all the way around the head to keep everything uniform, nice, and neat, and smooth, and keep all lines away from my fades. Using a pick, I comb out the top canvas, and then I take my Wahl balding clippers to shape it up. Everything is even and uniform. If it looks like this on the right side, it needs to look like that on the back, the left side, all the way around. I make sure everything is uniform all the way around. So once my canvas is to my liking, I got everything nice and neat. All the loose hairs are out the way. It's shaped up real nice and fine and perfectly. I come with my T-edgers to give a nice, crisp edge up. Add a little pencil to it. Add a little enhancement to it. Go back over it using my Wahl T-edgers. Making sure that everything is nice, neat, and crisp. Followed by my razor to give it a nice finished look. For my finishing touches, using my foam, I saturate the hair, massage it in, followed by my sponge to give off my textured crop. Yeah, that's how it's done. My name is Spodie. Welcome to my wall.